Before we get too deep into her professional life, I think there's really two things that we need to look at that really set the stage for her. I think the first one is the divorce of her parents, and the second is the death of her fiance while at Stanford. Both of those activities, or both of those effects, I think really laid the foundation for Heidi to be very proactive in her later professional life. I mean, we see her take very proactive action after these two events in order to set the stage for what Grant says in Give and Take, for her to have the motivation, the ability, and the opportunity to be successful. When we start looking at her early career, one of the things that you start to notice is a pattern of really taking advantage of the simplest of connections. The first job was a simple friend that knew an HR director that got her the job as the copywriter for the newsletter. That got her in front of the senior executives, which helped her build her reputation. It helped build her knowledge and really got her to know the right people at the right time. What we see after that, again, is her joining forces with her brother, another simple network, to market and expand upon this business that he had founded, the Team Maker product, the early adoption, early version, if you will, of the spreadsheet software. And when she joins there, she really understands that the networks that she needs to establish are with the press. The influencing the influencers, getting them to be that third-party validation of the product and getting them to validate the value of it. She's also concurrently becoming a board member of the Software Publishers Association. And you're starting to see her time and time again really putting herself in the path of these influential people that can make a difference and help her to build her own network. She's starting to create this ripple effect, enhancing the success of not only her, but her brother, the company, the other organizations that she's a part of, and thriving in an interdependent role where collaboration seriously matters. So at this point, she has squarely, after becoming the CEO of the Team Maker company, she's squarely established her career and has achieved a certain level of notoriety as a Silicon Valley CEO, which gets her the next job at Apple, which is described as a real coup for the company. This is where we really start to see Heidi Roizen's ties really come into play. She has to leverage what is described as dormant ties here to really get Apple back on the map. After Apple, she moved into what's described as a mentor capitalist. This was a unique opportunity for her really to not only leverage her existing network and relationships, but to put herself again in the orbit of others as well that may not have naturally come into her path at that point. She had solidly moved into the role of a super broker, super connector, catalyst, or market maker, whatever you would like to call it, many of the terms used in the readings for this module. She was leveraging her network for the benefit of others as this mentor capitalist. Interestingly, though, she was able to balance the yeses and the nos in this role. She understood that there had to be a balance in every relationship. She couldn't always be the one asking, but she couldn't always be the one doing either. She was, as Grant wrote about in the LinkedIn post, productively generous. She was giving without compromising the well-being of herself or her network of contacts. In the third or fourth act of her career joining SoftBank as the venture capitalist, Roizen was now in the position to help these internet startups, something she found personally fascinating. She would receive dozens of business plans and pitches and found herself dedicating a huge amount of time providing feedback to entrepreneurs to business plans that she had rejected. Again, seeing it as a way to build a network. She's quoted as saying, "You never know where some of these people are going to end up." So I think to summarize, there's a couple of golden threads that really weave themselves through Heidi's career. I think first she took advantage of the opportunities to make connections. From the CEO at her first job, looking to identify and connect with other key influencers. Later in her career, she was always looking. And I think she also understood that giving needed to be win-win, that it wasn't always about being nice or altruistic. She didn't always need something in return for her giving, but she wasn't afraid to ask for help and she wasn't afraid to receive the help either. And lastly, whether it was intentional or not, I like to think it was. She understood the difference between establishing dominance versus prestige. She really went for the latter. She became influential because others respected and admired her versus seeing her as powerful and authoritative. So, in Give and Take, Grant categorizes people into three areas describing their interactions with others. The first is takers, who like to get more than they give. Givers prefer to give more than they get. And matchers don't mind giving, but expect a quid pro quo, getting something back in return. And I think as we saw throughout the case study and the examples, it's pretty clear that Heidi Roizen was a giver. Although she is considered really an otherish giver, someone who cares about benefiting others, but is pursuing opportunities and ambitious goals for herself at the same time. So ultimately, I really think it boils down to three things that Roizen did in her career that ultimately increased her power, her influence, and her networking success. First, it was really taking advantage of every single opportunity to build a network. From the first meeting with the CEO in her first job to standing in line at the gym, she says, no idle time existed. And I think once she had made those connections, she knew how to influence people. In Harnessing the Science of Persuasion, he talks about appealing to people's needs, and Roizen does that through likability and similarity in order to build those relationships. And I think finally, once she had built those relationships, she was productively generous with them. She gave a lot, but didn't compromise her own well-being. She was also able to say no when she needed to. So I think those are the top reasons that she became so ultimately successful.